In this short sectional module, let's get an overview about properties of files and folders. Already we have seen commands such as ls-l, which will give us the details about the files and folders. We need to make sure we interpret the information such as this one, which is nothing but permissions, and also this one, which is nothing but owner, and also this one, which is nothing but group. We'll cover the details related to owners, groups, and others, and also we'll actually get into all the details related to the permissions. This will be a short sectional module where we'll be emphasizing on only the permissions and owners as well as groups of files and folders. At this time we are going through the details about files and folder properties. Let's understand this output at a higher level, then we'll deep dive a little bit. When it comes to this output, this is nothing but permissions. Along with permissions, this information also tells us whether it is a file or folder. You see the first bit, it is either D or hyphen. If it is hyphen, it is nothing but a file. So readme.md is nothing but a file. If the first character is D, it means it is directory. On top of hyphen and D, you might also see L. L stands for soft link. There might be few other characters as well. 95% of the entries will have either hyphen or D, which is nothing but file or folder. That being said, if you look at length of this string, it is nothing but 10 character length. The first character is nothing but D or hyphen, which tells whether it is a file or directory. After that, we have 9 characters. The first 3 characters are related to owner. We'll get into those details very soon. After the first 3 characters here, the next 3 characters are related to group. We'll also understand what is a group very soon. Then we have others. So these are nothing but permissions related to the owner. Then permissions related to others. Now after that, I'm not 100% sure about this. I haven't spent time in understanding this information. If you are interested, you can explore. After this information, you have the owner of this file and also the group of this file. I'll talk about the owner and the group very soon. Then we have size if it is a file. When it comes to the folder, it is a little bit tricky. This is not actual size of the folder. To get actual size of the folder, we have to use commands such as du. Then we should be able to get the size of the folder. I'm not 100% sure about how to interpret this information. Most of the cases you will be seeing 4096. Then there will be multiples of this value. I'm not 100% sure about how to interpret that. After the size of file and some other information related to folder, whatever information you are seeing here is nothing but the last modified time of this file. You have date as well as time part in this. This is how you should be able to interpret the output of ls-l. It is very important for you to understand this information. It will facilitate you to troubleshoot issues such as permission denied when it comes to dealing with files and folders. That being said, now let's deep dive details related to the owner and group first. Then we'll actually talk about the permissions that are associated with the files. At this time, we're in the process of understanding file and folder properties. In this lecture, let's get details about owner of the file or folder. That being said, in this case, let me go one level up by saying cd ... cd stands for change directory. Now let me run ls-ltr command. You can see there are several folders and files in this location. All are owned by this user. Now, even when we create new files in the system, depending upon the user that is logged in, the files will be created by that user, which means the files will be owned by that user. Let's explore few commands such as who am I, which actually give us the details about the logged in user. In this case, the logged in user is nothing but D. Gadiraju. Now there is a command called as touch, which will actually create empty file. Now if I say touch ABC, now if I say ls-ltr, you can see that the file is owned by ABC. When you create files, by default, the owner will be the logged in user using which you have created that file. In this case, by using touch command, we have created empty file by name ABC. As the logged in user is nothing but this one, the owner is also this one. When it comes to Ubuntu, that is set up using WSL, when it comes to each of the users that are created, there will be group also associated with by same name. That's why you are seeing group name also here. When you actually start working in the projects, the group name will be different. In this case, this is owner, this is group. We'll actually talk about groups as part of the next lecture. That being said, now as D. Gadiraju is owner, he should be able to delete the file as well without any issues. You can see that it is deleted. Now let's run ls-ltr command once again to see ABC still exists or not. You can see that the file is gone. Now let me run a command called as sudo su space hyphen space root. It will facilitate me to log in into root. it is prompting for the password. We need to enter the password using which the dgadiraju user is set up as sudo. When you actually set up Linux using WSL, you will automatically set up user and password. That user is sudo, which means he should be able to get into root user as well. Root is nothing but super admin when it comes to Linux operating system. Now there is a folder called as TMP. I am in the TMP folder. Let me say ls-ltr. As of now, there are few folders and files. Let me create a temporary file here. Let me name it as ABC itself. Now let me say ls-ltr. You can see the file is created. The owner is nothing but root. Now if I exit, I came back to the dgadiraju user. Now the logged in user is nothing but dgadiraju. You can confirm by running who am I here. You can see that the logged in user is nothing but dgadiraju. You can also see the details here. When it comes to the earlier session before we run exit, the logged in user is nothing but root. Now I should be able to go to the temp folder like this. If I say ls-ltr, I can see the ABC file here. However, if I try to delete this file, let me say rm abc, it will fail. It is because ABC is owned by root, not by dgadiraju user. In this case, the key thing which you need to keep in mind is by default, the owner of the file is nothing but the logged in user. In this case, when I say touch ABC after logging in as root, the file is created as root as owner. Once the file is created with root as owner, when we try to use regular users like dgadiraju to delete that file in temp, it is failing because the file is owned by root, not by dgadiraju. That being said, now I should be able to sudo to root by saying sudo su-root. Now let me go to temp folder. Now let me say ls-ltr. We can see ABC file here. Now let me say rm abc. The file will be gone. As the file is owned by a root user, as I am logged in as root, I should be able to delete the file as well. So once again, I am reiterating, when it comes to the files will be owned by the user that is logged in while creating the file. Only those users will be able to delete. However, the super admins like root should be able to delete any file in the system. We can always get the owner level information at this place when we run commands such as ls-l or ls-ltr. When it comes to this value, it is nothing but group value. Now let's go to the details about group in next lecture. At this time, we are going to the details about understanding file and folder properties. In the previous lecture, we have gone to the details related to the owner. Now let's talk about group. When it comes to group, we typically create groups such as dev, UAT, prod, etc. in actual projects. Also, there can be functional users such as sales, HR, marketing, etc. As part of the groups, we'll have multiple users. Typically, the permissions against the files and folders are attached based on the groups. All the members in the group will inherit the permissions that are associated with the group. That being said, when you run commands such as ls-l, ls-ltr, etc., whatever information you are seeing here is nothing but group information. Typically, in actual projects, the group might be different from user. But when we set up Ubuntu using WSL on Windows, automatically the group will be created for the user that is created, and hence the group will be there. And when we actually create the files, the group will be inherited based on the owner. In this case, when it comes to user dgadiraju, we have group called as dgadiraju. For root, we have group called as root. That's why when we actually use commands such as touch to create the file or even mkdir to create the folder, you can see that there is owner as well as group associated with these files. Both of them are nothing but dgadiraju. Now let me delete both of them. This is nothing but owner. This is nothing but group. Typically, the group will be different from the owner. There will be multiple members in the group. It is very, very important to understand that. That being said, there is also something called as others. So we have owner, group, and others. Now let me try to give you some perspective so that you understand what I'm talking about here. Let's say we have two groups. Let's name them as dev, then support. Now let's say we have three users in dev. The user names are nothing but dev1, dev2, dev3. In the similar manner, let's say we have support as the group name. Now let's say the user names are nothing but sub1, sub2, sub3. Let's review the output of ls-l command once again. Whatever information you are seeing here is nothing but a group. If there is no group by the same name as user, then you will be seeing primary group details of that user. Let's take care of creating groups such as dev and support, and also let's add users such as dev1, dev2, dev3 as part of dev, and also sub1, sub2, sub3 as part of support. After creating those groups and users, we'll experiment by creating few files. We'll observe how owners and groups are specified based upon the users that are used while creating the files or folders. As part of the section module, we are in the process of understanding file and folder properties. So far, we have got details related to owner and groups. Now it is time for us to create couple of groups so that we can experiment around those groups. There is a very simple command to add groups. It is nothing but group add. You can see the usage of group add command by saying group add -- help. Also, there is another command called as add group. You should be able to use add group also to add groups. Let me say add group -- help to get the usage of add group command. Using either of the commands, you should be able to add groups. I'll be using group add to actually add the groups. In this case, the syntax is nothing but group add, and I should be able to specify the group name. Let's say dev. It will take care of adding the group by name dev. However, D. Gadaraju is a normal user, but he has sudo permissions. In this case, if you try to just use group add command like this, it will fail saying permission denied. To make sure we can add the group, we should be able to use sudo like this. As the user which I have used to log in into the system is a sudoer, I should be able to run this command without any issues. If you don't have admin permissions, which is nothing but running commands as sudo, you will not be able to run this command and add the group by name dev. Now it is prompting for the password. Let me enter the password that is used while setting up the Linux based system on this Windows based system using WSL. Now the group is added. Once the group is added, there are multiple ways to validate. One of them is nothing but using cat command by saying cat etc group. There will be an entry for each and every group as part of this file. You can actually check the entry here. As the group is just added, it is shown at the end. You can also say grep dev and then /etc/group to get the groups with dev in them. There are 3 groups with dev in them. You can see they are nothing but plug dev, net dev, then dev. Now let's say add another group by name support. Again, we should be able to use group add command itself. Let me say group add and then support. Then hit enter. You can see that it have failed because there are no permissions to run it directly. In this case, we have to use sudo so that the user which is sudoer can actually use sudo to actually add the group using group add command. Now group is added. Once again, let's run command called as cat, then /etc/group. You can see support group at the end. You can also say grep support, then etc, then group. You can see that there is only one group with support in it. It is nothing but support itself. When it comes to dev, we have 3 groups where dev is part of them, but with respect to support, there is only one group. As we have successfully created groups such as dev and support, it is time for us to add users to these groups. I'll be demonstrating about how to add dev1, dev2, dev3 as users into a group called as dev. You can take it as an exercise and add users sub1, sub2, sub3 to group called as support. In this case, we'll be adding these users to respective groups as primary groups. I'll also demonstrate about how to add dev1, dev2, dev3 to support group as regular members. For these users, support will not be the primary group, dev will be the primary group. You can also take it as an exercise and make sure you add sub1, sub2, sub3 to dev group, where support will be the primary group, dev will be another group in which they can be members of. That being said, the command which you are supposed to use to add users is nothing but user add. You can actually get the help by saying user add -- help. Only admin users or super users can actually use user add command to actually add users in the system. You can see that there are quite a few control arguments. One of the control argument which you should be focused on is nothing but -g. If you want to specify a particular group as primary group, you have to use this -g. You can also explore others to use based upon your requirements. Other important ones are nothing but -d or --home dir, where you can actually specify a specific directory as home directory. In this case, I will show what is the default home directory, and also I will actually walk you through what happens when we use -g versus when we don't use -g. So let's start with simple user add. Let me say sudo user add. Let me specify the username as dummy. Let me hit enter. It is asking for the D. Gadaraju password. we need to specify the password which is used while setting up this user when we actually set up Ubuntu based operating system on this machine. Now the user is added. You can actually say cat etc password or passwd, and then you can actually grep for dummy. So let's grep for dummy here. You can see that the user dummy is created. The home directory for the user is nothing but this one. The default shell is nothing but this one, bin sh. You can actually say sudo su dummy, because D Gadaraju is super user. We should be able to impersonate as dummy in this case, which means we can log in into this system as a dummy using this command. Now let me hit enter. You can see that I'm able to log in into the system using this user. I'm in the same system, but I have logged in using a different user called as dummy. Now let me say pwd. You can see that I'm in /home/D Gadaraju. There is a reason why this is the present working directory for this user. You will understand very soon. I'll be explaining it in detail. However, if I say who am I, you can see that I have logged in as a dummy. Now let me exit from here. Now I'm back into the system as D Gadaraju itself. I'm not dummy anymore now. I can actually use who am I command to actually confirm. You can see that the user that is logged in at this time into the system is nothing but this one. Now I can actually say ID dummy. You can see that the user is created as dummy. The default group for this user is nothing but dummy itself. So when we actually use commands such as user add, if you do not specify specific group, it will actually try to create group with the same username, and it will try to add that user to that group. You can also confirm by saying cat etc group, hit enter. You see the dummy group is created. So for each and every user, the group will be created, which need not be a good practice. That being said, now let me clean up this dummy user, and also let me clean up this dummy group, and then I'll take it further. So in this case, I can say sudo user del is the command which can be leveraged to delete a user. I would like to delete dummy user. Let me hit enter. Now the user is deleted. You can actually confirm by saying ID dummy. If the user exists, we should be able to see the details of that user. However, it is complaining saying that no such user. Also, we should be able to validate by saying cat etc passwd. For each and every OS user, there should be an entry in this. Now you can see that there is no dummy user. You can also say grep dummy etc passwd. You can see there is no entry in this file. You can also grep for dummy as part of etc group. You can see that even the group is deleted. So when we actually deleted the user, the group that is created based on the username is also deleted. This is the default behavior when we use user add command. Now also when I actually use user add command and try to add the user, let me try again. Now the user is added. When I try to log in as that user by using this command, you can see that it is complaining saying cannot touch home dummy, which means it is not able to create the home directory, and it is complaining no such folder directory. By default, it is trying to get into this folder. However, as the folder doesn't exist, it is failing. Now let me exit. Let me delete the user. Now the user is deleted. Now let's say user add --help. We can use several control arguments when it comes to user add. The important one in this case to create the home directory is nothing but this one. If I say -m or --create home, it will take care of creating the home directory as well. You can also set the password while creating the user by using -p or --password. You can also change the shell. By default, it is bin sh. If you wanted to change, you can change it. Like this, there are quite a few control arguments. You just need to understand the characteristics of having a user in Linux based system, and you should be able to explore. That being said, now I can actually say sudo user add dummy, then -m, then that's it. I should be able to hit enter. Now if I say sudo su dummy, now it didn't throw any error. However, it is not confirming whether we are in the right directory or not, the way it is showing here. There is a reason why when it comes to the D Gadaraju, the output is like this. When it comes to the other users such as dummy, the output is like this. I'll be covering those details at a later point in time. For now, let's focus on running pwd command. You can see that now it is /home/dummy. Also, there is no error as we have seen earlier. Earlier, there was an error by saying no such file or directory. Now that error is gone. Now I can actually exit. Then if I run ls-ltr/home, I'll be able to see a new folder by name dummy. In this case, as I have used -m while running user add command, it have actually created a folder under /home by default using that username. You can see the details here. Now let's say sudo user del, and if we specify dummy, it will delete the user. However, the home folder will not be deleted. Let's look at the help on user del. For that, I can actually say user del -- help, hit enter. You can see there are few control arguments with respect to user del. If you wanted to remove the home directory, you can use -r or -- remove. If you don't specify this, even though the user and respective group are deleted, it will not delete the home folder. To make sure home folder is also deleted, we should be able to use -r. So in this case, I can say sudo user del, then -r, then dummy. Now the user will be deleted. The associated group that is created by default will be deleted, and also the folder will be deleted. You can validate by saying ls-ltr/home. You can see that the folder is deleted. That being said, this is a quick overview about user add command and also user del command to create a simple user. Now when it comes to user add, when we do not specify a group, it will by default create a group by the username, and it will make sure that group is the primary group for that user. However, our requirement is to create users such as dev1, dev2, dev3 as part of group called as dev. We'll actually take care of it as part of the next lecture. So far, we have gone through the details about creating a user by name dummy. We have actually seen the default behavior, and also we have explored quite a few options to customize the default behavior. Now, leveraging that knowledge, let's go ahead and create users dev1, dev2, dev3, where dev will be the primary group for those users. As part of the sectional module, we are actually going through the details about file as well as folder permissions and other properties. Already we have created groups such as dev, support, etc. I'll be demonstrating how to add users dev1, dev2, dev3 to dev, where dev will be the primary group for those users. You can take it as an exercise and add users sub1, sub2, sub3 to support, where support will be the primary group for those users. Already we have seen quite a few options related to user add using dummy user. However, when we actually add user using a command called as sudo user add -m dummy, even though it have created the home directory, when we try to log in to the dummy user, it is not actually showing the output like this. The reason is the default shell for the users that are being added is nothing but sh. Let me show what I'm talking about, then we'll take it further. In this case, you can actually say grep, then dummy, then etc password. You can see that the default shell is nothing but bin sh. If you actually change it and if you specify bash, you will see similar behavior like this. I will also explain why when we actually specify bash, it will exhibit similar behavior like this. For that, let me first exit from here. Before exiting, let me run a command called as ls-altr. You can see that there are a few hidden files, .profile, .bashrc, .bash logout, so on and so forth. In this case, I can say cat.bashrc. You can see there is a script that is there here. However, when the default shell for a given user is bash, then only it will execute. Otherwise, this script will not execute. If this script actually executes, then it will actually show the behavior as we have seen earlier with user dgadiraju. You can see for user dgadiraju, the output is like this because the bash RC script will be executed for this user, as the default shell for this user is nothing but bash, not sh. Now let me say grep dgadiraju /etc/passwd. You can see the default shell for this user is nothing but bin bash. Now let me say sudo user del -r. Let me delete user dummy. Now the dummy user is deleted. Now let me add user again, sudo user add -m -s for changing the shell. You can also confirm by using help on top of user add. Let me say user add -help. You can see there is a control argument called as -s or -shell, which can be used to change the login shell of the new account. Now I can say sudo user add -m -s. Let's say /bin/bash. This is the path for the bash. Now we should be able to specify the user. The username is nothing but dummy. Now let me hit enter. Now the user is added. Now let me say sudo su dummy. Now you can see that it is actually exhibiting the similar behavior as dgadiraju user. You can actually say ls-altr The reason why we are using -a is to display all the files and folders. You can see there are few hidden files which are nothing but .profile, .bashrc, etc. In this case, we can actually say cat.bashrc. This is the one which will be executed whenever the user is logged in using that name. You can see the script here. The script will be executed because the default shell is nothing but /bin/bash for dummy user. You can also say grep, then dummy, then etc pass wd. You can see the default shell is nothing but bin bash, not sh. As the default shell is bin bash, when it comes to the behavior, it is actually displaying like this because .bashrc will be executed whenever the user is logged in using that specific OS level user. That being said, now let me exit from here. Now let me say sudo user del -r, then dummy. The user is deleted. Now, as part of the next lecture, let's go to the details about adding users dev1, dev2, dev3. While adding these users, we'll make sure dev is the primary group for them. You can also take sub1, sub2, sub3 as an exercise and make sure those users are added with support as the primary group. Let's go to the details so that you understand what I'm talking about here. In the process of understanding how to add users, so far we have explored quite a few options. Now let's leverage those details and try to add users dev1, dev2, dev3 in such a way that dev is the primary group for them. First, let's start with user add help by saying user add space -help. Let me hit enter. Already we have seen -m so that the home directory is created. Also we can use -s to change the default shell to bash instead of sh so that when we log in into that user, we see feedback the way we are seeing here. Now, when it comes to adding users to a specific group rather than creating a new group, the option is nothing but -g or -gid. You should be able to specify the name or ID of the primary group of the new account. Now, already we have created two groups, dev and support. We can actually say grep -w, then dev, then /etc/group. Let me hit enter. You can see the group dev here. The ID for this group is nothing but 1001. So using -g, either I can say dev or 1001. It should work without any issues. Now let's say sudo user add -m to create the home directory, -s to use /bin/bash as the default shell. Then let me actually say -g. Either I can say dev or 1001. Then I have to specify the username. The username is nothing but dev1. Now the user is added. I can actually say ID dev1. I should be able to see the details of this user. You can see the primary group details here. It is nothing but dev. You can also say grep dev, then /etc/group. We should not be seeing dev1 over there because the group is not supposed to be created with the same username that is used, because we have said user add -g dev to make sure dev is the group that is used for this user. In this case, dev is the primary group for this user. You can see there is no dev1 group here, but the dev1 user is created because we have used -s bin bash. Now when I say sudo su dev1, you can see the feedback as we are seeing for the users such as Digadaraju. This is the login session for dev1 user on ITV Windows 11. Now let me exit from here. Let's add another user by name dev2. This time I'll be using group ID rather than group name. The group ID for dev is nothing but 1001. In this case, I haven't changed the username. That's why it thrown error saying dev1 already exists. Now I have changed the username to dev2. Now it should work. Now I can say ID dev2. You can see that dev2 user is added. The group for this dev2 user is nothing but dev. In this manner, we can also add another user. Let's say dev3. Again, either you can specify name or ID. I'm changing it to name. The name is nothing but dev. Now even dev3 user is added. We should be able to say grep dev, then /etc/password or passwd to see all the users dev1, dev2, dev3 as part of the output. All these dev1, dev2, dev3 have the home directory like this, and also the shell is nothing but bin bash. This is how you should be able to add users such as dev1, dev2, dev3 to a standard group called as dev. Now take it as an exercise and try to add sub1, sub2, sub3, where the primary group that should be associated with that users is nothing but support. Already the support group is created. You can explore the ID or name of that support group. You should be able to leverage either ID or name, and you should be able to create the users. As part of the previous lecture, we have gone through the details about adding users or creating users in Linux while associating those users with a primary group. The users that are created are nothing but dev1, dev2 and dev3. For all these users, the group is nothing but dev. It is primary group. When it comes to user, the user can be part of any number of groups. However, there can be only one primary group. Now let's understand how to make sure these users are modified in such a way that they are part of support group as well. If you want, you can even switch the primary group from dev to support, but in this case we will not be doing that. We'll be keeping dev as the primary group for these users, but we'll be making sure that these users are added to another group. In this case, it is nothing but support. If you have completed the exercise of creating users sub1, sub2, sub3 by associating with support as primary group, you can also take this as an exercise and make sure you add those users to dev group as well. So sub1, sub2, sub3 can be part of dev group as well. If you want, you can give it a try. That being said, there is a command called as user mod. Mod stands for modify. It can be leveraged to make changes at user level. There are quite a few options. You can actually relate this command to user add and you can actually explore some of the options. For example, you can actually use -m to move the home directory to a different directory. You can also use -s or -shell to change the default shell. Like that, you can actually take care of quite a few actions using user mod command. When it comes to dealing with groups using user mod command, these are the three options which you can consider. You can change the primary group by using -g or -gid. You can actually specify list of supplementary groups using -G or -groups. In this case, the primary group will not be touched, but other supplementary groups will be replaced. If the user is part of other supplementary groups, all those groups will be discarded and new set of groups will be associated with the user. Now, let's say ID dev1. As of now, dev1 have only one group which is nothing but dev. It is primary group. If I use -G like this, user mod -G, I can specify multiple groups here. We have only one other group which is nothing but support. So let me say support. Then let me specify the username which is nothing but dev1. Now support will be the supplemental group or secondary group for dev1 user. Now the command is executed successfully. Now if I say ID dev1, as part of the groups, you can see 1002 support as well. The primary group is still 1001 or dev only. It haven't touched the primary group when we actually use -G. That's why it have said we should be able to use user mod with -G to actually specify new list of supplementary groups. Now let's assume there are other groups in our system such as support1, support2, support3, etc. Now if I say sudo user mod -G support1, support2, support3, dev1, then support1, support2, support3 will be the new supplemental groups for this user called as dev1. Support will be gone. Now you can also use -a to actually append the user to new supplemental groups. You can also pass list of supplemental groups using -a. Instead of removing support as the existing supplemental group, it will add new groups as supplemental groups for that user. That being said, in this case, as dev1, dev2, dev3 are only part of a primary group called as dev. If you want to add that user to new group called as support, either we can use -G like this or even -a. Either of the approach will work. Now let me say sudo user mod -a support dev2. It did not work for some reason. I think something is missing. Some option is not right. So let me actually go through the details with respect to -a. Append the user to the supplemental groups mentioned by the -G. So when I use -a, I have to use -G as well. So in this case, I have to say -G, then group name support, then -a. We should not be specifying the group name here. This is the syntax when it comes to using -a. The advantage of using -a is it will not touch the existing supplemental groups. The user will be added as part of new supplemental groups. Now I can say ID dev2. You can see that dev2 is part of a supplemental group called as support. Now let's review the status of dev3. When it comes to dev3, dev3 is only part of one group. It is nothing but dev. Dev is the primary group for dev3. Now to add dev3 as part of supplementary group called as support, either we can say sudo user mod -G, then support -a dev3, or we can even remove -a and we can actually specify dev3 directly, because there are no supplemental groups at this time. If you already have a supplemental group for this user, if you want to make this user as part of new supplemental groups, then you have to use -a as well. Otherwise, the existing supplemental groups will be lost. Now let me hit enter. Now let me say id dev3. Let me hit enter. You can see that even dev3 is part of two groups. 1001 or dev, 1002 or support. Dev or 1001 is nothing but the primary group. You can get the primary group details here. It is also part of a supplementary group called as support. Now you can take it as an exercise and make sure sub1, sub2, sub3 are added to dev, where dev will be the supplementary group for those three users. That being said, we have successfully added users, and also we have made sure that the users have at least one primary group. There can be only one primary group for a given user. Also, the users are part of at least one supplemental group. Now, as we have created multiple users as part of one group, these users can be leveraged to understand the ownership as well as permissions associated with files and folders. Let's go through those details as users are ready. As part of this sectional module, we are actually going to the details about file and folder properties. What are the properties associated with files and folders? We should be able to use commands such as ls-l. Whatever information that is displayed here can be considered as properties related to files and folders. You have permission related details here. You have owner, then group, and also last modified time, as well as the size of the file or folder. That being said, now let's focus on this information and then we'll take it further. I'm copying this and then I'm actually opening a file called as concepts. As part of this, let me paste it. Now let's understand what they actually mean in decimal format. This is a variation of binary representation. When it comes to binary representation, we only have zeros and ones. We don't have anything else. So if I wanted to represent this in binary format, it is something like this: 111, then 101 for next 3 bits, then 101 for last 3 bits. As there are no hyphens in this, we are actually saying 111. As there is a hyphen here, you can see there's 0 here, so this r-x can be treated as 101. Again, this r-x can be treated as 101. It can actually mean 755 in the decimal format. This 111 can be treated as 7. Then this 101 can be treated as 5. Again, this 101 can be treated as 5. Understanding this in the form of decimal representation is very, very important. Unless you understand these details, it will be tough for you to understand some important commands such as umask and also chmod, which can be used to manipulate the permissions on files and folders. That being said, this value can be represented like this in decimal. In binary, it can be represented like this. Now let's spend some time to understand how this is actually converted to this. For that, you just have to recollect your high school mathematics where binary to decimal is covered. So when it comes to binary to decimal conversion, you just have to say 000 as 0. So 000 is represented as 0 in decimal. Even you can say 0 to 0 with respect to binary to decimal conversion. However, as we have 3 bits, I'm actually representing like this. Even you can say 0 implies 0 from binary to decimal. Now 1 or 001 is nothing but 1 in decimal, but after 001, the next number with respect to binary is nothing but 10 or 010. So if it is 010 in binary format, in decimal format, it is nothing but 2. If it is 011 in binary format, in decimal, it is nothing but 3. If it is 100, it is nothing but 4. 101, it is nothing but 5. 110, it is nothing but 6. 111, it is nothing but 7. After that, if we have 1000, it is nothing but 8, so on and so forth. In this case, all these 3 different values represent only up to 7, starting from 0. Now you can see here, 111 means 7, 101 means 5, again 101 means 5. So with respect to this value, in binary format, it can be represented like this. In decimal format, it can be represented like this. Why it is very important for us to understand these things? Only then you should be able to use commands such as chmod to actually manipulate the permissions on files and folders. Also, there is another command called as umask. Even to understand umask, you should be able to understand these concepts. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand. That being said, we only covered the permissions part of it. Okay, now these permissions are related to the owner, which you see here. Then these permissions are related to the members in the group. However, in this case, when it comes to dgadiraju user, he is part of dgadiraju group itself. There will be only one user with this default group. We will be exploring the details using dev1, dev2, dev3 users, which are part of dev group. Then it will start making more sense to you. Any other member who is neither owner nor member of the group here will actually inherit these permissions. So the permissions which you are seeing here are related to the owner, group and others which are neither part of the owner or members as part of the group. Let's look at few examples using dev1, dev2, dev3 users which are part of dev group. You will be able to understand all these nuances with a lot more clarity. Before going to those details, let's also explore command called as umask, and then we'll take it further. At this time, we are going to the details related to understanding file and folder properties. So far, we have gone to the details about how to add users, and also we have gone to the details related to the permissions, how this can be interpreted in both decimal as well as binary format. Now, let's explore a command called as umask, which is very, very important. To understand umask, let me first touch a file. Touch will create an empty file. Let me say touch dummy. Now the dummy file is created. You can see the details here. You can see that the owner of this file is nothing but dgadiraju. When it comes to dgadiraju, the primary group is nothing but dgadiraju, and hence you can see the group details here. You can also see the permissions for this dummy file. The owner have read and write permissions. You can see here. The members in this group have read-only permissions. All others, neither this owner nor the members of this group have read-only permissions. Now let me also create a folder, and then we'll take it further. Let me say mkdir dummy dir. That is the directory name. Now let me say ls-ltr. When it comes to dummy dir, which is nothing but directory, the owner have read, write, execute permissions. The members in the group have read and execute permissions. All others also have read and execute permissions. There are differences with respect to permissions related to file and folder by default. How these permissions are applied to these files and folders, there is something called as umask. Based upon the umask value, the permissions are inherited for these folders and files. Now let me run command called as umask. We should be able to get the current details with respect to umask. It is saying 0022. Out of this output, we should understand these three numbers 022. It is very, very important for us to understand these values. Now let's go back to the conversion of these numbers to decimal. This is 755. At max, it can be 777. If it is RWX, RWX and RWX, that means 111, 111, 111 in binary format. In decimal format, it is nothing but 777. Now you can subtract these values from 777. It will result in 755, right? So in this case, if you subtract 022 from 777, it will result in 755. So based upon this value, whatever is resulted in after subtracting this value from 777, whatever you are seeing here will be applied for the directories. For files, it will be something like this. The value will be subtracted from 666. When we subtract 022 from 666, the result will be 644, which is nothing but 110, then 100, 100. When it comes to 755, it is nothing but 111, 101, 101. So for folders, it will be read, write, execute, read, execute and read, execute. For files, it is nothing but read, write, read, read. Because for files, it is nothing but 666 minus whatever value you are seeing here. In this case, it is nothing but 022 and hence 644. It can be represented in binary format like this 110, 100, 100, which means for files, the owner will have read and write permissions by default. The members in the group will have read-only permissions. The others will have read-only permissions. With respect to directories such as dummy directory, whatever directory that is being created here, the owner will have read, write, execute. The members in the group will have read and execute. The others will have read and execute. Why it is important to have execute permissions on directory? Let's go to the details here. So when it comes to the directories, we typically use commands such as cd to get into the directory. In case if I want to get into dummy dir, I have to use cd command like this. Also, I should be able to use commands such as ls-ltr. Then I can actually specify the directory name. It will facilitate me to go to the folder and see what all files we have, which means we are executing some things against those folders. For that reason, by default, there will be execute permissions on folders. Whereas with respect to files, not all files actually need to have execute permissions. There might be text files. For those text files, we don't need execute permissions, and hence by default it will use 666 on files rather than 777 to subtract the umask value and apply the permissions. Now we should be able to change the umask value, and we should be able to observe what happens. To change the umask value, you can explore umask like this. We should be able to see the usage of umask command. You can actually specify the mode. Again, you have to specify in this format only. So let's say umask 000. Now let's say touch dummy1. The file is created. When it comes to dummy1, as it is file, it has subtracted 000 from 666, which means it will result in 666, which is nothing but 110, 110, 110. That's why you are seeing read write permissions for owner, group and others. Now let me actually create a folder by name mkdir dummy1dir. Now let's say ls-ltr. Let's check the permissions on dummy1dir. You can see that it has subtracted 000 from 777, and hence it will result in 777 itself, and hence the owner got read write execute permissions, the group got read write execute permissions, even the others got read write execute permissions. So whatever value that is specified as part of umask, that will be subtracted from 777 for folders and 666 from files. Whatever is the result, based on that the permissions will be allotted on files or folders. That being said, to go back to the original behavior, we should be able to say umask 022. Now let's remove all these files. I am just saying rm-rf dummy star. It will take care of deleting all the files and folders recursively. Now I can say ls-ltr. All the files and folders are gone. Now let me say touch dummy, and also let me say mkdir dummy dir. Now let me run ls-l or ls-ltr. Let me use ls-ltr. Now you can see that the permissions on the file are nothing but read and write for owner, read for group, and read for others. When it comes to dummy dir folder, the owner have read write execute, the group have read and execute, and the others have read and execute. Another common umask value which you might see as part of the real environments is nothing but this one, umask 027. When it comes to the files, it is nothing but 640. When it comes to folders, it will be nothing but 750. Let me actually say touch dummy1 and also mkdir dummy1 dir. Now let me say ls-ltr. When it comes to the dummy1 file, you can see that the owner have read and write permissions, the members in the group have read permissions, others doesn't have any permissions. So in this case, 026 will be subtracted from 666, which will result in 640. You can see here, this is nothing but 640. When it comes to the folders, 027 will be subtracted from 777, which will result in 750. That's why you are seeing permissions like this. The owner have read, write and execute permissions. The members in the group have read and execute permissions. The others have no permissions. It is very important for you to understand these and also understand the relevance of umask. Now if you exit and if you log in, again it will go back to the original umask value. So let me say exit here. Now let me actually get into the session once again. Now if I say umask, you can see that it is nothing but 022. If you want, you can overwrite in this session and then take it further. There are ways to actually globally set as well. In most of the cases, you will be seeing 022 or 027. 027 is also quite common with respect to production or production-like environments at clients. That being said, as you have understood not only the details with respect to the permissions and also the relevance of umask and also how these permissions are associated with the owner, group and others, let's take care of creating a few files using users such as dev1, dev2, dev3, etc. and see how it will actually drive the permissions to the other users in the system. It can be the members in the same group or it can be others which are not part of the group. At this time, we are going to the details about file and folder properties. The important properties related to file and folders are nothing but owners, groups, and also the permissions. We are in the process of understanding the nuances related to permissions. In that process, we have created users called as dev1, dev2, dev3. Also, these users have a primary group called as dev. It is very important for you to understand that these users are part of a group called as dev. For all these three users, the primary group is nothing but dev. You can validate by saying id dev1, then id dev2, and also id dev3. You can see all the three users exists, and also you can see the default group, which is nothing but primary group for all the three users. It is nothing but dev itself. Now, before actually getting into the details about how the permissions between users work, let's understand how the permissions are by default generated for home folders for these three users. The home folders for these three users are nothing but /home/dev1, /home/dev2, /home/dev3 respectively. Let's run ls-ltr command on /home. Let's see the details here. The home folders for dev1, dev2, dev3 are nothing but these ones respectively. You can see the owner for this folder dev1, it is nothing but dev1. The owner for dev2 is nothing but dev2. The owner for dev3 is nothing but dev3. Also, as we have specified dev as the primary group when we actually created these users, you can see the group details as well. Now, if you look at the permissions, when it comes to dev1 as user, because he is the owner for this folder under /home, he should be able to read, write as well as execute in this folder. So, the user dev1 should be able to create files and folders under this folder. Same is the case with dev2. The dev2 user can actually take care of creating files and folders under this folder because the owner is dev2. When it comes to the permissions, they are nothing but read, write, and execute. Same applies for dev3. You can see the owner. When it comes to the permissions, it is nothing but read, write, and execute. Let me quickly demonstrate so that you understand what I'm talking about here. In this case, I'm actually saying sudo su-dev1. Now, I have logged in into the dev1 account. You can see the dev1 here. Now I can actually say pwd. You can see the home directory for this user. It is nothing but /home/dev1. Now I should be able to say touch dev1 dummy. It will take care of creating a file. As user dev1 have write permissions on this, because of this, the user dev1 is able to create this file called as dev1 dummy. You can run ls-ltr command to review the properties of dev1 dummy. You can see that when it comes to the owner with respect to dev1 dummy, the owner is nothing but dev1. Whatever user that is used to actually create this file, the default owner will be the user which is logged in at this time. In this case, we have logged in as dev1 and the file is created as dev1, and hence the owner for this file is nothing but dev1. When it comes to the group, it is nothing but the primary group. In this case, dev is the primary group for this user dev1. That's why you are seeing dev here. Now we also have umask. When it comes to creating the files, this value will be subtracted from 666. It will result in 644. That's why we got read write for owner, read only for group, and read only for others. Because of the umask, the properties related to this file is like this. When I say properties, I am talking about permissions here. Even if I create a folder, let's say mkdir dev1 dummy dir. Now let me run ls-ltr. In this case, you will be seeing these permissions because the 022 will be subtracted from 777, which is nothing but 755. As we have 7 for owner, it is nothing but read, write, execute permissions. For group, it is nothing but read and execute only because it is 5. For others, it is again read and execute because it is 5. So based upon the umask value, the permissions on the files and the folders will be determined. That being said, this is with respect to /home/dev1, which is owned by dev1 user. Now, as dev1 user, as of now, I have logged in as dev1 user. You can see here, I can actually say cd/home/dev2. Now you can see that I'm in the folder dev2. Why I'm able to get into that folder dev2? That is because, let's say I say cd and come back to dev1 home folder, which is nothing but home dev1. Now if I say ls-ltr/home, when it comes to dev2, the owner is dev2, the group is dev. When it comes to members in the group and others, they have read and execute permissions, but they don't have write permissions. Because they have read and execute permissions, the dev1 user can actually get into this folder without any issue. That's why when I say cd/home/dev2, I'm able to get into that folder without any issues. However, if I try to create a file saying touch dummy, it will fail. You can see it is saying permission denied because the user dev1 doesn't have write permissions on /home/dev2. However, if I exit from here, now I am back to dgadraju user. Now let's say sudo su dev2. Now I have logged in as dev2 user. You can check the home directory for the dev2. It is nothing but /home/dev2. Now I can actually say touch dev2 dummy. You can see the file is created without any issues. You can run ls-ltr and you can see the file. Because this is the home directory for dev2 and dev2 is the owner for this directory, and hence logging in as dev2 user, we should be able to manage files and folders in this without any issues, as the user have write permissions on that home directory. Now using this dev2 user, we should be able to get into either /home/dev1 or even /home/dev3, but the user dev2 will not be able to create any files or folders either in home dev1 or in home dev3. Let me try to create a file by saying touch dummy. You can see that it is failing, saying permission denied. This is a brief introduction about the cross user permissions. It is very, very important for you to understand this. It will facilitate you to troubleshoot the issues when you actually start developing the applications or dealing with the datasets. Make sure you practice enough and be comfortable. As of now, we have gone through quite a few details with respect to users, groups, the home directories, and also permissions associated with the home directories for the owners and non-owners. In this case, dev1 is the owner for /home/dev1, which is home directory for that user. That user should be able to manipulate folders and files without any gaps. However, the other users such as dev2, dev3, and even the users which are not part of the group dev can actually read and execute the folders and also read the files, but they will not be able to write. We'll get into the details about the groups and others so that you understand what is the difference between group and others and why they have categorized into owners, groups, and others. Those details will be covered as part of the next lecture. At this time, we are going through the details about files and folder properties. The main properties related to files and folders are nothing but permissions as well as owners and groups. When we run commands such as ls-ltr, we'll actually see the permissions related to owner, group, and others. As part of the previous lecture, we have gone through the details about how dev1, dev2, dev3 will have write permissions for their respective home directories and read-only permissions on others directories. However, in this case, whether it is dev2, dev3 with respect to dev1 or any other user like dgadraju, the behavior will be the same. So in this case, if I look at /home folder, there are dev1, dev2, dev3, then sub1, sub2, sub3, and also dgadraju user. Now I have logged in as dgadraju user. Even though dgadraju is not part of dev group, the dgadraju as a user can actually get into any of the home directories and he will have the read permissions on files and folders in those home directories. It is because when it comes to the home directories of dev1, dev2, and dev3, not only group but also others on the system have read and execute permissions, due to which users like dgadraju can actually get into those home folders and they should be able to go through the folders and files without any issues, as long as the permissions on those files and folders are satisfying the read permissions for the others or read and execute permissions for the others. That being said, now let's see what happens when we restrict the permissions. So in this case, I'll be using a command called as sudo chmod. Chmod is primarily to modify the permissions, and we will try to restrict the permissions only for users, groups. For others, we want to make sure there are no permissions at all. So let's go to the details. In this lecture, I'll just walk you through the command called as chmod, how we can leverage to change the permissions on certain folders. Then we'll take it further. So in this case, dgadraju is a super user, which means he is also admin in the system. So as dgadraju, he should be able to control the permissions of other users' home directories. So let me say cd, and let me go to the home directory of dgadraju. Now let me say sudo chmod, then let me say 750. So 750 means read, write, execute for owners, read and execute for group, no permissions for others. Then I should be able to say /home/dev1. Now the permissions with respect to the home directory of user dev1 is being changed. Let me enter the password once again. Now the permissions are changed. Let me say ls-ltr/home. When it comes to dev1, when it comes to others, there are no permissions at all. Only the owner and group have the permissions. Group have only read and execute permissions. The owner have read, write, execute permissions, but others doesn't have any permissions. Now let me log in as dev1. By default, he will be in the home directory of dev1. Now I can say ls-ltr and I should be able to see the files and folders. I can actually delete these files and folders. Everything will work without any issues. Now I have exited from dev1 user. Now let me log in as dev2. When it comes to dev2, dev2 is part of dev group. When it comes to the dev1 home directory, the members in the dev group have read and execute permissions. Who are the members in the dev group? They are nothing but dev2 and dev3. I have logged in as dev2 here. Now I should be able to say cd/home/dev1. You can see that dev2 can actually get into the home directory of dev1. Dev2 can actually run commands such as ls-ltr. As of now, there are no files and folders in this. However, if he try to create a new file by saying touch dummy, you can see that it is failing, saying permission denied, because dev2, who is part of dev group, doesn't have write permissions on the home folder of the dev1. That's why he is not able to create the files or folders under /home/dev1, which is nothing but home directory for the dev1 user. Now let me actually come out of this. Again, I came back to the dgadraju user. In this case, I'm not going to use sudo. If I use sudo, as sudo will actually give super permissions to dgadraju user, it will work without any issues. Without using sudo, I'll be trying to get into the /home/dev1. Now you can see that it is saying permission denied, because for others, there are no permissions on the home directory of the dev1. That's why the user dgadraju without sudo is not able to get into this folder called as /home/dev1, but he will be able to get into /home/dev2 or even /home/dev3. You can see it is working fine. Now let's make sure we go to the home directory of dgadraju user and let's run sudo chmod command by saying 750 on /home/dev2 and also /home/dev3. Now for both dev2 as well as dev3 under home, we have removed the permissions for others. We should be able to validate by saying ls-ltr/home. Now you can see that even with respect to dev2 and dev3, for others there are no permissions. Now without using sudo, if I try to say cd/home/dev2 as dgadraju, which is not part of the dev group, it will fail. You can see that it have failed, saying permission denied, because others doesn't have any permissions on these home folders anymore. This is how you can actually differentiate the permissions with respect to group versus others. It is very, very important for you to understand these subtle differences. Make sure you practice enough and understand these subtle differences so that you can improve your troubleshooting capabilities whenever you encounter these issues such as permission denied when you deploy your applications or when you try to process your data. We have created groups. As part of the groups, we have added users. Then we have understood the permissions associated with owners, groups, and others. As part of this sectional module, we have gone through the details related to file and folder properties. In this lecture, I'll actually conclude it so that you can connect all the dots that are covered in this sectional module. The main command which you can leverage to actually get the details related to files and folders is nothing but ls-l. Keep in mind that folder is nothing but synonym for directory. So either you can call it as directory or folder. Now, the first part of this output for each and every entry is nothing but the permissions. Then I'm not 100% sure about this. Then owner, then group, then the size of folder or file, then the last updated timestamp, then the name of the folder or file. The first bit in these permissions will actually talk about whether the entry is related to a directory or file. If it is D, it is a directory or folder. If it is hyphen or minus, it is nothing but file. Apart from these, you might also see some things like L, which represents soft link, so on and so forth. However, 95 to 98% of the entries will have either D or hyphen. Then the rest of the information is nothing but permissions. The first 3 bits are related to owner. So in this case, the owner have read, write, and execute permissions. The next 3 bits are related to the group. All the members in this group will be having these permissions, then followed by the permissions related to the others. We have gone through the details related to how this can be represented in binary format, in decimal format. We have also gone through the details about the relevance of umask command, which will control the default behavior of creating the files or folders whenever we run commands such as touch, mkdir, or even when we actually try to create files by redirecting the output into the files and all. We haven't covered those details, but we have demonstrated using touch, where we have created the file and we have understood how the permissions are inherited based upon the umask. Then we have gone to the details about creating the required users in specific groups. We have actually created dev1, dev2, dev3 users, and we have added those users to dev group. Then we have gone to the details about how the permissions are inherited on the files to the members of the group and also to the others. It is very, very important for you to understand all these nuances so that you can troubleshoot issues related to permission denied whenever you run applications in Linux-based systems, and also whenever you get files from the external systems. For all types of engineers who work on Linux-based systems, it is very, very important to understand these nuances. That being said, let's go ahead and clean up whatever is created as part of this sectional module. I have created a few files such as dummy, dummy1 directory, dummy directory. As all the files have dummy as the pattern, I should be able to say rm-rf dummy star. It will take care of deleting all the files and folders which starts with dummy. Now let's also go ahead and delete all the users and groups that are created earlier. In this case, I should be able to use userdel to actually delete the users. Let's run the command called as grep and then cap character, then dev, then say etc pass wd. It will actually give us the list of users with dev in it. So we have 3 users, dev1, dev2, dev3. To delete these users, we can actually say sudo userdel -r, then dev1. It will take care of deleting the dev1 user. Then dev2, it will take care of deleting the dev2 user. Then dev3, it will take care of deleting the dev3 user. We should be able to validate using this approach. Now take it as an exercise and delete sub1, sub2, sub3. We can also delete the group by saying sudo group, and then you have group del. So we can use group del, and then we should be able to delete the group as well. So in this case, the group name is nothing but dev. You can take it as an exercise and you should be able to delete support group as well. Now let's review whether the home directories are deleted or not by saying ls-ltr/home. You can see that with respect to dev1, dev2, dev3, the home directories are deleted. Also, you can actually confirm whether the users are deleted or not by using this command. You can see the users are deleted. You can also say grep, then dev, etc group. You can confirm that there is no entry for dev in etc group as the group is deleted. This is how you should be able to clean up the users and groups that are created for your practice purpose. Make sure you clean up so that your system is clean. Also, make sure you are comfortable with all the file and folder properties that are covered in this sectional module. It will facilitate you to troubleshoot your issues better when it comes to supporting your applications in UAT, prod, etc.